All right, well, it's 6 o'clock. Lydia, do you want to get started?
Yeah, and I will resend the link. That's just a link to pretty much just the presentation if you want to follow along. And I will screen share.
And then I'm going to introduce myself real quick, and then I will get out of Lydia's way. My name is Jonna Corpy, and I am the Sustainability Coordinator at the University of Minnesota Duluth. And I'm really excited for all of you to be here joining us. And very excited to have Lydia joining us, also UMD student and maker of all sorts of cool things. So Lydia, I don't know if you want to say anything about yourself, or maybe that's on your presentation, but I'm just going to hand it over to you, and I will keep admitting folks as they join.
All right. I am Lydia. I'm a senior at the University of Minnesota. I'm studying environmental science and sustainability. And I'm going to turn off my phone, it keeps buzzing. And I am the face behind Stitches and Sprouts. It started off as just like a little place to document my creations, and then the pandemic happened and I had lots of time to make all kinds of crochet projects and masks and all that kind of stuff. All right, so I will get into it. So what is crochet? It's pronounced as crochet. It's kind of a weird word. It uses a single needle to loop yarn together. It is thought to be easier than knitting, which uses 2 needles. It's perfect for beginners because it is so simple to learn. Here are just a few things I've crocheted recently. I feel like there's a lot of stigma behind crocheting and knitting, that it's kind of like an old lady thing, but I feel like there's a lot of modern things, a lot of modern patterns that have come out recently to get away from that stigma of just like old lady blankets. All right, so where to start? I am going to start with yarn. I personally like using natural fibers such as cotton, wool, and bamboo. Acrylic is one of the most common synthetic yarn material, and it's often blended with these natural fibers to make yarn cheaper for the consumer. And I wrote this down just to be sure I'm right. It's often made out of reacting certain petroleum and coal-based chemicals. So essentially, it's pretty much just plastic. So I tend to stay away from acrylic. I know it's so easy to pick it up at the like the craft store. Everything's blended with it. I picked up cotton yarn, and then it ends up being like 10% cotton and 90% acrylic. So just watch out for that. Acrylic tends to be kind of itchy. It pills over time. And yeah, as an alternative, I would suggest cotton. It's fairly cheap, just as acrylic. Just make sure to watch out for those labels. And here's my all thrifted yarn sweater. I'm wearing it right now. A lot of thrift stores and antique stores offer yarn for a pretty great price, and a lot of the times it's high quality. You can also buy yarn at craft stores, Hobby Lobby, local yarn stores, and online. And then we'll talk about more about the labels. All yarn have labels, just like food they buy at the grocery store, and it's important to read them. These labels will include fiber content, the length and weight, the thickness, the recommended needle to go with the yarn, and carrying instructions like how to wash it. And when using a pattern, there will usually be yarn recommendations, and these will help you choose the yarn that best fits your project. And then again, here is just an image of those labels and just the breakdown of what each label means. And then crochet needles. Crochet needles will determine how big or small your stitches are. They can be made from plastic, wood, aluminum, and it doesn't really matter what they're made out of. for your project. I personally like to use aluminum just because they're a little heavier and easier to hold. The size of the needle can be written on the handle, just like a pen size. And it is important to match these sizes to your pattern, or else your project will either be way too big or way too small, and you want to avoid that. Here's just a few pictures of the needles. They tend to come in either number sizes or letter sizes, and you can easily convert these. I just usually look it up on the internet because I can never remember how to convert them. So yeah, just like refer back to the internet. Some other helpful tools: a scissor, a tape measure, a large eye needle big enough to thread your yarn through, a stitch maker, and a row counter. A stitch maker is this small little plastic thing. It just helps you keep track of your progress. You can also use paper clips, safety pins. I've even used just like a different color yarn and tied it on there. And then a row counter just helps you keep track of your rows. And there's lots of free apps out there. You don't necessarily have to buy this little device. You could even just write it down on a piece of paper too. Okay, so how to read a pattern. It can be kind of scary at first because it's all abbreviated, but I will break that down for you. A pattern will state what you usually need. So like this pattern says you need chunky weight yarn and this size crochet hook. And they also include like special crochet stitches that you need to know. So it's always helpful to refer back to these. They're usually listed in the beginning of the pattern. And here you can see the abbreviations. Over time, you'll learn to memorize the abbreviations. In the beginning, I just would refer back to the internet. There's lots of places out there that have little charts that you can like print or download and save. It kind of looks like a code at first, but over time you learn to understand it. And here are just some basic abbreviations. I copied these down from just a chart on the internet. It's pretty easy to find. Okay, so if you guys have your crochet hooks and needles, you can grab it now. I'll give you guys a second. Okay, we'll start with how to hold the needle. It's kind of weird, but you'll get used to it. These little pictures should help. I also have videos too. So I tend to hold it kind of like this at the back of my palm. You can also hold it in the front, whichever is more comfortable. And then we will start with a slip knot. You want to start about with a 6-inch tail from the end of your yarn. And then from the picture, you want to make like a little pretzel loop, I guess. And then you want to insert your hook into the loop and grab the yarn, pulling it up to tighten it. And I have a video just to show you guys. And there is the little pretzel. And then you want to stick your hook underneath that bottom piece and then pull it to tighten. I can play it again. And if you want me to slow down, just let me know. Or if you have any questions, feel free to speak up.
I'm having a problem making this pretzel.
And I can pause it too. This end over here is
I have a circle.
Yep. This end piece is the like 6-inch tail, and then this other piece is connected to the working yarn. You kind of make one loop and then another one, and it's kind of hard to show on Zoom. I can replay the video. And you don't want to tighten it too much, but you want it fairly loose that it still kind of moves around on that needle. I'll play it one more time. All right, and I can always come back, and like I said, I linked the slides on that link I sent in the chat. All right, so holding the yarn. This feels kind of weird too, and it's kind of confusing in words, but I have another video. So when you hold your yarn, you loop the yarn loosely around your index finger on your non-dominant hand, leaving the working tail down your palm, and then you anchor by wrapping it around your pinky. And then you pinch together your thumb and third finger just below the hoop of the hook to hold your work back. And here's a video. I personally like to wrap it around my pinky just to tighten it a little more. And I can play that again. Again, if you have any questions, just let me know.
Yeah, just a reminder to anyone in the audience, please ask questions. Like, this is meant to be interactive and not just like Lydia just talking at you guys. So you are more than welcome to ask questions.
Well, the yarn is very slippery.
Yes.
Yeah, and different yarns will have different textures. Okay, so now we'll start with the first loop of our project. This will be called yarn over. So to do this, there's a little image, if that helps. I'm gonna move this. Wrap your yarn from back to front. You always want to wrap it back to front. And then using the yarn that is over your index finger on your non-dominant hand where it's all wrapped together. Let's see, using the yarn that is over your index finger and closest to the hook. This will be called the working yarn. This is connected to the ball of yarn. And then we will make a chain stitch. Once the yarn is over the hook, draw it through this little loop on the hook. Be sure not to crochet too tightly on your foundation chain. If you chain it too tightly, you won't be able to get your hook back into it to work off of the foundation chain. And here is another video. There is it wrapped around. And then you can see that I wrapped the working yarn over the top of it from back to front and pull it through that loop. And again, I'm just starting over here, back to front. Use that little hook part on your hook to hold that yarn and pull it through the loop. And then I'll go ahead and make as many chains as you want. I think here I make 10 or 11 chains. And I will start that over from the beginning.
Oh, that's kind of.
It's definitely weird wrapping it around your fingers and trying to pull it through. But after a while, you just get used to it.
And I would add that getting that first chain of stitches, like your first 10, and then that second row, that's probably the hardest part of the project outside of finishing the whole thing off, because everything's still kind of like loose and it doesn't have structure. And
right.
So
and
try
I
to
use
be
those
patient with that part.
Yeah, and they tend to curl, so make sure you're just always trying to keep it straight. I use those middle fingers just to try to hold it flat. to keep it straight. All right, and then from here, I just keep on going. Okay, so once you're done with that row, we'll be making a turning chain. At the end of the row, a turning chain is used to bring the yarn and crochet hook to the height required for the next row. You must stitch one extra stitch in order to turn up to start that new row. Otherwise, your project will end up shrinking and you'll be losing stitches over time. So a pattern will say single crochet 11 stitches and then turn. That 11th stitch will be like your corner. It'll give you just that extra room to move up to the next place. And then single crocheting for your second row. To do this, you want to look at those first two circles on that image. Insert your hook from front to back into the stitch, yarn over, and pull it through the loop. There'll be 2 loops on your hook. And then once there's 2 loops on your hook, you want to yarn over again and then pull through both of those loops. And then I have another video of that. So here's my chain. I think there's 11 there. So you stick it into that first loop, yarn over and pull through, and you'll have 2 chains on your hook, and yarn over again, and then pull through the 2.
And we've got a good question in the chat there, Lydia.
Oh, how do I see that? Okay. So when I say crochet 11 and then turn, that will be just your whole row. So say you want to chain a hat that is 10 chains thick, you'll want to add 1 extra one, so it'll be 11. And then after that 11, you don't have to add an extra one. And in a pattern, if you're following a pattern, it'll say, I don't know, like 24 chains is 8 inches. And then in the pattern, it'll say chain 25 for your first row. And so that's kind of where you convert it. And I can start this one over. And when you're inserting your hook, you want to insert it on that left side into that little, it almost looks like a braid, that outside braid part. You want to insert your hook under there.
From the back?
From the, let me think, from the front into the back. And then you want to hook, yarn over back to front, if that makes sense.
And in this first chain, I think it's important to note, like, unless you're getting into really fancy crochet, you're going only through one of the loops, but in the next rows, you'll go through both the loops, but I'm sure Lydia will show that. So this one is, these first 2 are very different than, or not very different, but they're a little different than the rest of the project.
And it'll tend to curl and the stitches will look uneven. Don't worry, it'll flatten out. Okay, and then once I'm reaching the end, I add just 1 extra crochet. I crochet stitch, and that's my turning stitch. So just make sure you add that onto your end of the row. I'll play that. Oops, it went forward. I can play that. Again, it can be confusing, but you'll catch a hang of it. And then insert front to back, and then loop that yarn over back to front, pull through, make sure you have the 2 loops, and then you pull it through again through both of those. And again, you just repeat that until the end of your row, and then I'll skip to the end, and then just add that single extra stitch, kind of stretch it out, flatten it out. All right, so now we are on the next row. Okay, so like we were talking about earlier, on the foundation chain and then the next chain, this will be like your second chain. Unless the pattern says otherwise, always insert your hook under both of the loops. In the picture, you can kind of see that middle section is both loops, highlighted in black. You'll be able to see the back loop and the front loop. You always want to go through both of them. And here's a little video of that next chain. So here you can see how there are those 2 loops. You want to insert under both of them. Insert under, and then just continue on just like you were in the previous row. And the videos will be online. I will be adding those to it. I don't think they are right now, but I can definitely upload those. And here it is from the beginning, sticking through both of those loops. Make sure the hook goes back, and then yarn over and pull through those 2 loops. And I think that is the end of the crocheting videos. If you want me to go back to any of them, I definitely can. Just let me know. But I will explain a little bit once you're done with your project, what you do when you're done. All right, so you want to fasten off your project. This just secures the stitches, making sure it doesn't unravel. So you want to cut about a 6-inch chain from the end of your row, and then draw that yarn through the remaining loop, just like if you were to crochet another stitch. And this will create like a little knot. And then with that tail, you'll want to take your needle and kind of thread that tail through the rest of your project. I wouldn't cut the tail super short. It tends to unravel once you wash it and everything. So just be careful with that. And then once you have tied off and everything, once you're completely done with your project, you want to block it. This, it's to make your project more fabric-like. It'll bind the material together. To do this, you want to look at the washing instructions on your yarn label. I usually just put it in the sink with cold water. Make sure to soak it really well. I don't like wring it out really hard or anything. Just be pretty gentle with it. I have never put in the washing machine right after I'm done with my project. I usually just stick it in the sink to get it damp. And then once it's damp, you want to put it on a flat padded surface. There are, I don't know if there's a name for them, but there are certain like pads for knitting and crocheting that you can get to lay your project out for blocking. I usually just use a whole bunch of towels And then you lay your project flat on these towels while the project is still damp. And sometimes the pattern will say, like stretch it out to your desired length, like if it's a scarf or something. So just be careful with that. You don't want to stretch it too far. Just stretch it out to the desired shape you would like. And then with restless pins, you pin it down and then you let it dry overnight or until your project is no longer damp. Then it'll be ready to wear. You can wash it according to your yarn directions and everything like that. Okay, and then I added a granny square pattern. I don't know if you guys are ready for it, but I did add one. And like I said, I added that link if you want to ever refer back to it. There are patterns all over the internet too. I have a video of me doing it. I don't know if you guys want me to play it. It goes kind of fast. But I also wanted to mention where to find patterns. On Pinterest is probably the place I get most of my patterns. Ravelry is another website. It uses, I think it's just crochet and knitting patterns. And that's similar to Pinterest where you can like save it. Some are free, some you'll have to pay for. Etsy, you can download lots of patterns there. Sometimes on the back of your yarn label, you can rip it open and there'll be patterns on the inside of there. They'll say you'll need 3 balls of this yarn in order to make this scarf in the pattern. So those are always helpful. And then there's also little like free patterns always in the yarn aisle at like Hobby Lobby and Michael's. So those are a good place to look for them. And those are always like right next to the yarn that it suggests. So if you're looking for patterns that are fairly simple, those are some places to look. So I can play the granny square video, or I can go back to another video. If you guys need help with anything, just let me know. You can add it to the chat or just shout out. Okay, I'll play it very slow and talk you through it. Okay, so first you want to make 5 chains. These are like my favorite thing to make. I could make these all day. And then we'll be working in a round, which means you'll be making a circle. It sounds confusing, but instead of going to that stitch right next to where your needle ends, you want to start at the very beginning where that knot is to make that circle. You loop it through, and then this will be the start of your first like loop. Okay, and then these will be double crochet. So the first video I showed you was single crochet. Double crochet means you wrap your yarn over before you insert your needle. So you can see it me doing that here. Yarn over, insert the needle, and then you'll have 3 loops on your hook. And then with these 3 loops, you want to go through the first 2 and then the remaining. And again, that double crochet, yarn over, oops, I insert it over. Okay, here's the double crochet, yarn over, insert, and then you'll have 3, yarn over, insert into 2, yarn over again, and then you'll insert into those last 2. And you do this, granny squares work in groups of 3, so you'll do 3 double crochets for one group. And then there's that group. You'll do 2 just normal crochets, and then yarn over, insert it into that center of the loop. You're not inserting it into anything other than the middle of that circle. And then again, do a group of 3, and then 2 crochets. and then double crochet 3 times. It's kind of fast. I'm sorry if this is overwhelming. And then you'll kind of see at the start of the square, and then you'll do 2 crochets, insert into the center of the loop, 3 more double crochets, and then this will be the end of your loop, 2 chains, and then insert that chain into this area right where you started. You'll kind of see that. It kind of looks like a shell, like a pasta shell. You'll insert it under those 2. And then there you have your first little square, and then we will start more double crochets. So we do 3 more double crochets, and then you are working into those holes in the corners. You can kind of see that. There's 3, and then here you don't make any more crochets. You just skip over to that next hole. So a group of 3. And then 2. And then this will be your corner, so you make another group of 3 into that corner. And then there is your first corner, and then you'll do double crochets into that next little hole. And then you do 2 more crochet stitches into that corner, and then 3 more double crochets. Then you just keep on doing that. I'll skip forward because it's kind of scary and overwhelming. And sometimes if you don't understand a stitch in a pattern, I always look it up online. Even if it's like a very simple stitch, I always refer just back to a video. Videos really help if you're looking for something you don't understand. Definitely go to YouTube. They always have stuff on there. I'm always referring back to there. Yeah, that is the end of my slides. I can go back to anyone you like. Like I said, in that link, those are all posted there. And I think we're recording this, so we'll have it all recorded too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, let me know. Or if you want me to go back to a slide or explain something, just let me know.
Well,
What would you? Oh, go ahead, Judith. Sorry.
I've gone back to my original little chain.
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a problem holding the yarn.
Okay.
What I might have done for, in my head, I'm still trying to knit, I guess.
Oh yeah, I do the same thing whenever I try to knit. It's just like this seems weird and foreign to me. I can go back to that little image. Let me see.
So when you start the second row, I got that much I got done. Starting your second row.
Starting the second one?
Yeah.
Okay, let me play the video. I can't remember which one it is. Sorry. Okay, here's the image of you holding the yarn. And this will always stay the same. And usually never changes. So you wrap it over.
Mm-hmm.
And it helps if you hold that little knot or working place. It will help you.
Okay, got that.
Okay, and then here is the next video. All right, is that the same thing? Okay. I think you are looking for this one. All right, so you have that chain, and then you wrap it around your fingers, and then I like to hold it, that chain, in between those, the thumb and the middle finger. And I tend to hold it pretty close to the stitch I'm working on.
Okay.
And the first one's hard, it's curls and everything, so just be patient with it. And you want it wrapped around your hand fairly loosely so you can keep on crocheting without having to readjust and everything. If it's too tight, then you'll have to go back and give yourself that room to pull it.
I think it takes a while to get used to too.
It does, yeah.
It took me a long time to get comfortable. And I actually I double loop around my index, and I still have some tension issues, but I just kind of keep adjusting as I go. So you can, but yeah, once you get past that second chain, I think it gets a little bit easier to kind of figure out a flow. So if you struggle through the first base chain and then the first single crochet, it gets easier after that. So then you can kind of be like, oh, okay, now I'm figuring out how my fingers are supposed to go.
Okay, I am doing something wrong. I'm going to have to watch it later just to answer people's questions.
If you hold it up to your video, maybe I can help, but Zoom's hard. I wish I was there just to help you.
And then we have a really great question in the chat, Lydia. What if we want to change colors?
Oh yeah. All right. So if I have one color, at the end of where I want to end, I cut about like a probably like 6-inch tail from my original color. And then with the new color, I just I can show you too. So say this one's your new color and this one's your old color that's attached to your working project. I just make a tiny little knot. I don't know if this is right. This is what I do. I just make a little knot and then pretty close to where I want to switch colors. And then work that new color just as you would your original color. And then at the end of your project, you can just cut that tail and then you can kind of like tuck it into the back of your work, if that makes sense.
That seems like the easiest way to do it.
Yeah. And there's yarn out there that like transitions in colors too. That's pretty fun to use because you never know like how to look. And you don't have to deal with switching colors.
Do you have suggestions, Lydia, for people that are just starting out? Like what's the easiest kind of weight and needle size to start with?
Super chunky yarn can be kind of hard. I usually gravitate towards, I don't know, let me see. I don't even know the size of this one. I think it's size 5 needle, which is usually like a fairly thin yarn. I like to use that. And I feel like it's pretty easy for beginners. Super small, anything under than 5 it'll be hard to see the stitches, and using a super chunky yarn tends to be like very loose, and sometimes loose stitches can be hard if you don't feel comfortable with the work, if that makes sense. And then there was a question. Could you show that edge of the piece is supposed to look like? I'm just trying to make a square with a single crochet and feel like I'm going all the way to the end of the row. I think I'm just dropping stitches. Do you just have to count to make sure you're getting it? In the beginning, I like to count, and you can always recount chains in your head. Let me find the end. Or just like that image of those little stitch markers, those always help. These little things you can stick on the edge just to see exactly where that ending is. I feel like that's helpful. And then I can show that edge piece too. Okay. So once you turn, you'll kind of see that end piece there, and then you'll stick it into that next one, if that makes sense. And then at the end of this video, I think I show that turning piece too. So at the end of your first chain, you'll be close to that knot. That's when you know you're at the very end. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. And then if you want, if you have a stitch maker and you want to stick it in there, if you want to stick a paper clip or another piece of yarn, anything really works. I think you could probably even use like a pop tab, like rip that open and stick that in there. Just so you know that you're reaching the end. And then from here, say you had 10 stitches, from the beginning, you can just count in your head. Oops, I keep skipping forward. You can just count in your head to ensure that you have 10 stitches, if that helps.
I have a short piece that I was working on that I mean, it's hard to see, but like the edge is like, it's not like super defined as an edge. So I feel like, I mean, I've been crocheting for a couple of years now. I'm not a super expert, but I still have that issue of like, wait a minute, I think I lost a stitch somewhere. So paying attention, you know, if you can count, you know, if you're doing a short piece and you can keep track in your head, yeah, at least for the first couple of rows, I think that would probably keep you on track. If it's like a super long piece, like if there's more than 15 or 20 stitches in a row, stitch markers would probably work the best. But yeah, the edges are always a little suspect, especially when you get into more complicated stitches and you're like, wait a minute, did I do my extra chains? Did I do enough extra chains to turn? So it's a common problem.
Yeah, and you can always go back and count that top piece where you can see those little shell like stitches. You can go back and count those. I feel like it's kind of hard to do that sometimes, but it's definitely, you could do that. You'll notice once your project starts to like move more inwards, it's either you're losing stitches or you're doing it too tight. You're tightening as you go. So just keep an eye out for that.
What would you say, Lydia, would be the best project for somebody to start and then feel successful getting all the way to the end and finishing off once they've practiced?
I feel like a scarf would be easy. I mean, you could even make like a short little cowl and just make a long little rectangle. That would be easy. A hat, like you were saying, just the rectangle and then tie it on the end. I don't know what else. There's lots of beginner patterns. If you just look up beginner crochet patterns, they're pretty straightforward and simple. But yeah, I would say anything in a rectangle is probably the easiest at first.
Yeah. So I was telling Lydia before we got on that, pardon my hat hair. So this was my first ever crochet project. And it's literally like the cream part is just a long rectangle. It's like, I don't know, not sure how, I think I ended up doing 40, a chain of like 40 to start. And then I just did, I think these are double crochets, but you could do single crochet just to like learn your stitch. And so then you end up with this nice long rectangle once it's like, you know, the appropriate size of your head. And then I just sewed the end together to make it kind of slouchy. This part, I don't think I did this right, but it looks okay. You know, so like I put an edge on it and I, you know, like you're just kind of figuring it out. So, but this is super easy. I mean, it only took me, for my very first project and only knowing one stitch, it only took me a couple hours.
Yeah, and it's pretty fast. Like once you think it's a lot more time than it actually is, but your head isn't giant. You're not making these giant things, so it goes pretty fast once you get a hang of it.
And the rectangle is easier than working in a round, I think, personally.
I know
people have questions.
Want me just reach out if you want me to go back to any slides too.
Okay. Well, if folks are feeling comfortable, I'm gonna do our drawing.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention that in the beginning. Everyone who came to class today is entered for a drawing for a little mending kit made by me. I think there were a few pieces of scrap fabric, some thread, needles, pins, little scissors, seam ripper, just like simple tools for mending.
Perfect. So I am going to use a random number generator because that's very official. And once I find our participant list here, see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 people still on the call. So we'll do 9. And then I will just go through the participant list, and whoever is number 6 on the list, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, Paul Lindgren, you are our winner. So if you want to, you can do this 2 ways. You can put your contact information in the chat, or you should be able to send it to just me, because I'm the one who will be mailing it out, or you can send me your address to my email, and I will send you the kit.
Okay, that sounds really cool.
Awesome.
Congrats, Paul.
Thank
Our
you.
next class is February 9th at 6, same time on a Tuesday. We'll be going over patching holes and reattaching buttons. So if you guys have any holy clothes or need a button reattached, make sure to bring them.
Yes, and I hope you'll talk about more than just patching jeans, because I just put a big hole in a pair of leggings, and I feel like that's going to be not complicated, but since it's stretchy, I'm just going to wait for that day.
I have a pair of leggings that need repatching too, so
nice.
I feel like it's a common issue.
Awesome. All right.
Lydia.
Yeah, thank you all for coming. It was so fun. I'm glad I got to teach.
Hidden.
Is that Amy?
It's Aunt Amy.
Hi, Amy.
You can come and teach me next summer how to do those granny squares.
Okay, I will. We'll make a blanket.
All right, good deal. I'll perfect my straight work first.
Okay, yeah, you practice.
But thank you. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thanks everyone. And you've got Lydia's contact information, Stitches and Sprouts on Instagram if you want more questions answered. And my email is in the chat. And hopefully we'll see you next time if you want to learn more skills.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Bye.